This latest scandal by Justin Trudeau and the failed Liberal government is beyond comprehension. You have espionage at the highest level, not just transferring mundane data. You have actual real viruses that can be weaponized against the general public, not just here in Canada, but the world. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe. And I hope you consider turning post notifications on so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos and live streams. We're on road to 100,000 subscribers. We're getting more views about this stuff, about Question Period, what happens in Parliament, than CTV, than Global News, and CPAC, our federally funded broadcasting organization here in Canada. The government sure as shit does not want you to be subscribed or for these views or on this channel to even grow. So without further ado, let's get into this video. We're going to start off with some Andrew Scheer. We're going to get into Uncle Brock. You're going to want to sit around for the entire duration of this because it is insane the level of corruption that's running through our government right now. And this is treason at the highest level. Not just a little bit of data that's been transferred, not just some election interference, espionage that has real world consequences. Without further ado, here's the video.
Confused because it's not Conservatives making a link between these scientists and threats to national security. It's the government's own security agencies themselves saying that these individuals, quote, were collaborating with foreign entities that present a threat to the security of Canada. We're talking about research with pathogens and deadly viruses, while at the same time these individuals were on the payroll of the People's Liberation Army for the communist regime in Beijing. Now, rather than inform Canadians and come clean at the outset, the government went into overdrive to cover it up. How could the Prime Minister be so callous and selfish that he would try to protect himself rather than the security of Canadians?
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Let's drop some W in the chat for Andrew Scheer. He put his glasses on, his superpowers.
I'm very happy to answer to my colleague because Canada has shown leadership when it comes to national security, Mr. Speaker. That's something the Conservative will not want to ally to Canadians. But let me refresh your memory because they tend to be selective when it comes to the facts. On the 16th of January, Mr. Speaker, we announced that we will ban funding for research in sensitive areas. There's 100 entities around the world, Mr. Speaker. We work with our Five Eyes allies. We work with research centers in this country. We work with university, Mr. Speaker. Canadians know that we will always put national security first and defend the interest of Canada.
They'll put other national security first, not Canada's.
They want to give themselves a gold star that finally 3 years later, after fighting, kicking and screaming to keep these documents hidden, that now they've been released only because Conservatives demanded it. Let's remember the facts. They ignored and refused to comply with 4 parliamentary orders. They took the unprecedented step of taking the Speaker of the House of Commons to court to keep these documents hidden, and then they called the snap election hoping it would all go away. If this was all just an administrative issue, then why the cover-up?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
In the first order, one of the things that is disturbing about what the member is supposing is that if he was in government, and I hope that that doesn't happen, that they would interfere in the redaction process and they would be involved in it. We obviously did not do that, particularly not with national security. What we did do, and in fact, the member opposite and I had a conversation about this. First, I suggested immediately that they see the documents at NSICOP. He said that wasn't good enough. So I created an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee gave them the opportunity not only to see the documents, but put to an independent arbiter whether or not they should be released publicly. We did that together. The documents are released. They're now before us.
Common sense Conservatives will act the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. After 8 years, this Liberal NDP Prime Minister is not worth the cost, the crime, or the corruption. Never before in the history of this great nation have so many people have to resort to food banks. Thousands are now resorting to dumpster diving because they can no longer afford the cost of food. Will this Prime Minister show some compassion and cancel the April 1st carbon tax hike?
That's the right thing to do. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
That colleague is from Ontario, where I'm from, Mr. Speaker, and the climate rebate that Ontarians will receive is over $1,100. That's for a family of 4. Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised, though, to hear that member and the Conservatives continue to bring up these points. They want to take money out of the pockets of Canadians.
Nope.
Today,
they want to put it into the pockets of Canadians and keep it there.
Pharmacare, the Leader of the Opposition ran away when asked if he would support Pharmacare. When it comes to student loans and helping students, when it comes to EI, pensions in particular, they're nowhere to be seen. They want to make cuts. They're a party of austerity, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are getting back far less from this government than they're paying in carbon tax.
That's right.
According to Second Harvest, this year we'll see a 30% rise in the demand for food charity in some regions. Wow. Where I live in Southern Ontario, we produce food to feed the entire nation. Yet so many families there still do not have enough income to cover basic food expenses. Why won't this government just do the right thing? Cancel the 23% carbon tax hike on April 1st so that Canadian families can afford food again.
Yeah, do the right thing.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
That gloom and doom member who wants to take Canada out of the UN needs to know a little bit of good news for a change, Mr. Speaker. We've had many months of good news for Canadians. Just recently, Statistics Canada announced that in January we gained 37,000 new jobs, and there are 1 million more Canadians, Mr. Speaker, working than before the pandemic. The unemployment rate is at 5.7%, and wage growth is outpacing inflation, and that's even more true for women. You'd think that member would care about such things.
The honourable member from Battleford's Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, common sense Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Because after 8 years, Canadians know that this Prime Minister is not worth the cost, crime, or corruption. Life has never been more expensive in this country. 1 million Canadians will be relying on food banks this year alone. And still, this Prime Minister is hell-bent on hiking the carbon tax up by 23% on April 1st. Mr. Speaker, why won't the Prime Minister cancel his carbon tax increase and help make life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Canadians have had enough of the gloom and doom coming from over here. They're deliberately ignoring the truth about how our government has supported Canadians.
What a projection, eh? Just no self-awareness, no accountability. It's embarrassing.
Order. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, 2.3 million Canadians have been lifted out of poverty since this government took office and started caring about Canadians by putting supports in place that those guys had spent all their time cutting. Families throughout Canada have seen their child care fees slashed, in many cases down to $10 a day, thanks to this government and this Bill C-35 that we're getting ready to pass today.
Common sense Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Meanwhile, after 8 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians know he's not worth the cost, the crime, or the corruption. And just yesterday, we learned that in the Prime Minister's $60 million Arrive scam, one of the contractors who was paid millions is actually a bureaucrat for this NDP Liberal government. That's why Common Sense Conservatives passed a motion in this House demanding that this government produce all of the documents on this Prime Minister scandal. Will he stand in his place and commit to releasing every last page?
There you go, man.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, 24 hours. 24 hours after we became aware that the CEO of Dalian was a DND employee, we've taken action, Mr. Speaker. We have suspended...
That took 23 hours too long.
We have suspended the employee and we have launched an investigation on how this person became an employee at D&D in the first place. Mr. Speaker, we will act to ensure that we protect the integrity of our institutions and our government.
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's offer it a little louder for those in the back. What we're looking for is a commitment from this government to release every page of those documents, because after 8 years, it's clear to see that these Liberals aren't worth the corruption with their NDP Liberal Prime Minister. It's very clear, a $60 million scandal with people in their basements getting paid $20 million, not doing any IT work, and now we have that minister's staff who are getting paid millions of dollars while Canadians are lined up at food banks. So another question, and I'll say it loud so the minister can hear it, will they commit, stand in their place to getting Canadians money back for their corruption?
There you go, man. That's awesome. That was very, very well said.
Defense. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I'll simply remind the member opposite how quickly we acted. This information became to our attention yesterday. And since that time, we have suspended all contracts with Dalian. We've suspended the member, and we've launched a thorough investigation that will determine how this individual became to be employed. Mr. Speaker, we are demonstrating...
Investigation after investigation.
The member from Brantford Brant who's about to ask a question. Just to remind that I expect all colleagues to have respect for each other and to wait their turn to speak when they're recognized by the chair. And at that point, when they have the opportunity to speak, I will also request that all people listen to that member. The Honourable Minister has 15 seconds left on the clock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to repeat what I've already said, except to remind the members of this House that when this information came to our attention, we took immediate action. We took the steps necessary to protect Canadians' interests and to remove this individual from our employ.
The honourable member from Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, common sense Conservatives will axe the tax. We will build the homes. We will fix the budget. We will stop the crime. Well, after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost, crime or corruption. Yesterday, we learned that yet another company received $8 million tax dollars for the Arrive scam. But it gets better. This one, owned by a national defense bureaucrat. The rot continues. Yesterday, Parliament passed our motion to force the government to release all documents and to repay taxpayers. Will the government end the cover-up and release the documents? Yes or no?
Damn, Uncle Brock. Let's get some W's in the chat for Uncle Brock.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite began his question by talking about all the things that the Conservatives propose to do at some distant point in the future. But, Mr. Speaker, let us remember what they did when they were...
I smell bacon, I smell pork. Watch out, Bill, I got a fork.
To less than 1% of GDP. Less than 1%. When they cut the resources of the police, our national security intelligence advisors, all of the people whose job it is to protect us and to maintain the integrity of our institutions, they cut them. And, Mr. Speaker, we've been rebuilding the government to get the work done, and we are prepared to take the action necessary.
I see that in the comments. I don't know who wrote that, but that was funny as hell.
Wait his turn to ask a question.